It's on recording? Yes, sir.
Hello. Hello.
Good morning, sir. We can hear you.
Yeah, great. Okay, just checking. So we'll start in a minute or two.
Sure, sir.
చెప్పు గీజర్ ఆన్ చేయి
A very good morning, Professor. Have we started already?
Not as yet.
Yeah, not yet because we haven't heard anything.
Yeah.
He said he will take some time. No.
Yeah, he was telling for
Minute
1 or
or
2
so.
minutes. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, great. We'll wait.
Hello. Can you hear us now? People online?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Sorry for that
Yes,
glitch.
sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, we've been talking about motivation basically and tried to find out what motivates people. So far somebody said gift vouchers and also economic inducements and recognition. We've come thus far. What else? Where they send you to Afghanistan. So does that mean on-site? How should that motivate people? Why should that motivate people? What? Continue. So it makes sense. I want to know why. I mean, when you say on-site, my understanding is that people want to go on-site, say, to the Bay Area. So no, I mean, does on-site mean the same thing as going to, say, the San Francisco Bay Area, or going to UK, or going to Rwanda, Burundi, and going to Afghanistan? Does it mean the same thing for you? Uh, So you're making a distinction between US, UK, Rwanda, Burundi, and Afghanistan. No, just answer my question. What has currency got to do with it? If you get an on-site opportunity to go to Kabul day after tomorrow, will you go? Why? Why?
Maybe
You said
because
you said on-site. You said on-site. So I'm sending you on-site.
yeah, maybe Kabul is not safest place to visit.
So you're bringing in an extraneous point like safety, which makes sense. Very good, excellent. Also, you're actually talking not about the work. You're talking about economic inducement. What you're trying to tell me is, if I send you to a useless job in the US, which you're ready to accept, but if I give you a great job in Kabul, you're not ready to go. Yeah, that's not motivation. Yeah. So again, we come back to the point as to really what motivates people eventually. So as you make your way through careers and journey, in jobs and so on and so forth, what drives people? Giving new work, like a new project and so on. Very good. Okay. We finished that before you came. Yeah. Growth is good. Okay. What else? No, I want you to start thinking out of this small box that you've got yourself into, that gift vouchers, throwing money at people, giving them. So today, madam, I mean, since you are interactive, let me ask you a question. Suppose you join a great company and they call you a supervisor, as against joining a not great company, they pay you less money, but call you senior vice president. Where would you go? No, just answer this question. Where would you go? Okay, so you would say senior vice president. Okay, so those are problems that you have to grapple with. So good companies at least look at what is called as extrinsic motivation, like what we're talking about: designation, money, the quality of your office, how good or bad your secretary looks, as against what motivates us intrinsically. Do you really like to come to work because the job means something to you? Does the work make impact? So these are some of the theories that we are going to look at. We're also going to look at some interesting theories like starting off with, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? And then we will go on to several other theories, including Herzberg's theory, which I just now mentioned, Frederick Herzberg, who did a lot of research on whether money really motivates people or not. And then we will talk about the McClelland's theory of needs as to what drives people. So if I give you a choice between, say, I want achievement, I want power, or I want people to like me. So McClelland did a lot of research here again, and he said that generally these are three things that motivate people. What would you pick? I want power. I want to control people. I want achievement. At the end of the day, I need to achieve something. Or I need to have people. Everybody should say in my office, this guy is a good guy. What drives you? So all of us have a mixture of them in different proportions. So I might have a great sense for power, a middling sense for achievement, and a low sense of, wanting people to like me. What is it that drives you? So there are enough of psychometric tests that can determine what is your requirement. No. Out of these three, what drives you? What do you think drives you? None of these three drive you. What drives you guys? Huh? Achievement. Okay. Anybody need for power is high? Need for power is high. Okay. A need for affiliation, or you want people to like you?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So like I said, you can have different. So for me, the need for achievement is very high. The need for power is not so high. And interestingly, I found I don't care what people think about me. So is it a good thing or not? It is for you to decide. Obviously, when you get into leadership positions, so I temper it a little bit. Now I'm a little bit more careful of how I sort of come across with people and so on. I try to be more polite and not so abrasive and so on. But my need for achievement is very, very high. So that's my personal thing, because I've gone through psychometric tests. I know. Similarly, you can also go through psychometric tests and find out. So that was John McClelland. So we've got several theories, and these are not something that have been invited. For example, Maslow has picked up a lot of stuff from the Vedanta theory, because his guru was a Vedantist and he has listened to him and so on and so forth. So these theories have been in existence from, I think, say 10,000 years, but today they are in a form that we understand them better and which they are spoken to in our language. Much before these guys, there was a fellow called B.F. Skinner. B.F. Skinner came with some interesting experiments with rats. And so how many of you are on variable pay? A lot of you are on variable pay, and people don't seem to understand it. But Skinner did a lot of experiments with rats and pigeons several years ago, where he showed that if you vary the food given to rats, they seem to work much harder. Yeah. So it's not that somebody in your office invented these things. These are based on solid research and theory. You can look up B.F. Skinner. He's a great guy. And he showed that if you put a rat in a box and you have a lever, eventually the rat figures out that it has to press the lever for getting some. So every time it pressed the lever, a food pellet dropped the rat and it used to eat it. B.F. Skinner did something interesting later. He then showed that what he did was that a pellet would not drop. And if the rat pressed that pellet more often, then it would get a greater number of food pellets. And the rat eventually realized that if it continuously kept pressing that pedal or that lever, food came in larger. So all of you are, in a sense, those rats, yeah, who Skinner showed, and these are fascinating experiments that these Americans carried out. Okay, so let's look at what are the three key elements of motivation. Compare early theories of motivation. Contrast the element of self-determination theory and goal-setting theory. Self-determination theory is what is your drive for, say, doing a job well? Is it intrinsic, like you just like the job? I love my job. I turn up here because money is not, that's about me. Money is not my prime consideration. What drives you? So is it intrinsic? Is it extrinsic? And so on and so forth. Those are theories. Understanding the difference among self-efficacy theory, reinforcement theory, and expectancy theory. So what stresses you out at work generally? Anybody? What all of you are not, are you stressed in any way, or you're pretty cool about it? What stresses you out at work?
Sometimes I wish there were more hours in the day, sir.
Sometimes you wish they were more. Very good. So time constraints, resource crunches. What else? For me, I mean, I don't know. And you should tell me. For me, the greatest stressor is when I don't know the job well, and I find my boss also doesn't know. That is a frightening situation. Yeah. And so that is what the self-efficacy theory talks about. Are you smart enough or good enough to do your, or you just wandered in? So when I actually came to Bengaluru from the Netherlands in 2007, I joined a smallish IT company as a director of HR without having a clue what happened in IT companies. And I just then woke up and found that this was very different from a ship. And anyway, it went on for some time, and it was not great because I had to drive every day to that horrible white field. And my driver was not helping. He used to put my car between two lorries all the time. So anyway, to cut a long story short, it sort of was not working. And then one of my friends in IBM told me that, Captain, why don't you join IBM? So I said, but other than Microsoft Word and Excel and so on, I have no idea what these companies do. He said, doesn't matter. You join and you can, after all, you've commanded ships, which have been very expensive. So you should be able to manage. But it made me uncomfortable, saying that I really have no idea about the job. Okay, leadership is one thing, but if I don't know what people below me are doing, then it makes me uncomfortable. I know sometimes I reflect back and think, suppose I had joined IBM and they'd given me a job, how life would have turned out. But for me, I think it's very important for a person to have efficacy. That is, he understands you can't just wander into any job without knowing what happens there. And it's even more frightening, like I said, when your boss doesn't know what the job is as well. So between the two of you, you have no idea. And then there is something called as expectancy theory. Expectancy theory is, do people get what they want to get? So the other day, the director of, we have a deputy director of events for the university. And she was conducting an event. So I was asking her, what is it that, so she said, I'm conducting an event called Mr. and Mrs. DSU. This time you guys were not there, but next time we'll keep you informed. So apparently you have to do, so I asked her, what do you do in this event? She said, no, sir, we give questionnaires, survey, they have to fill a survey. Then there is an interview with a faculty who is about 65 years old, and so on and so forth. I said, really? I mean, you think these kids of 22, 23, they want this kind of questionnaire filling? They want to have fun. What do you think? You agree with me or no? Nobody wants to fill questionnaires in a fun event, right? So that is what the expectancy theory, and there's a very interesting example. So many times Your HR decides that I am going to take everybody to Uru on Friday evening to get drunk, and this will motivate people. It may not. You may have people who are not interested in going, right? So that is what the expectancy theory. So these are fascinating theories of motivation, and actually they make a lot of sense. So you should pay attention and go through them carefully. So what is motivation? Is the process that accounts for an individual's intensity, direction, and persistence of effort. So the three things here. One is, of course, intensity, direction, and persistence. So do you have the intensity? Do you have the direction? And for me, the most important thing is, what is persistence? No, it's not perfect. No. What is persistence? Fundamentally, can you hang in there? Yeah, after all, life is not easy. And so the first time that Sachin Tendulkar went out to bat, I think he was hit on the nose by a Wakar Yunus bouncer. He would have run away. Yeah, there's a very nice interview where, I think Navjot Singh Sidhu was the other side. And he says that after he got hit on the nose, then they wiped the blood off. This Tendulkar has a very squeaky voice. So he says, gets up and says, "Main khelunga." That is persistence. Yeah, you get hit, you get knocked down, but can you get up? And you see all great people. Yeah, they are persistent. Another great person that I admire a lot is Narayan Murthy. And you may or may not be aware that Infosys, those 7 odd guys, were offered $1 million in the 80s to sell their company. Everybody agreed except him. Yeah, and he said that I will pay you fellows this $1 million. You can take it and go away, but I am not going to sell. Just imagine, suppose they had sold it for $1 million. Yeah, so persistence is very important in areas of, and this I'm talking about is intrinsic motivation. How motivated are you in terms of achieving something, achieving a goal? So the level of motivation varies both between individuals and within individuals at different times. And of course, you have culture coming in, what kind of culture we come from. So if you just to give you a simple example, maybe in the Western world, they're more concerned about material gains. So can I get more ESOPs? Yeah? Can I make a faster buck and then move on? Can I be an entrepreneur, start a company? Those are something. India, maybe it sort of varies. So intensity concerned with how hard a person tries, direction, the orientation that benefits the organization, and persistence, a measure of how long a person can maintain his or her effort. Yeah. So let's come to the famous Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This is the starting point of anybody talks about motivation. They start off from here, and you start with, of course, Maslow said, first of all, people require the physiological needs. The problem with Maslow's theory is that he said that you have to go in order. You first achieve this, then you go to security. So somebody writes meant safety. So Madam G's point of view of not wanting to go to Kabul, of course, for her it is economic inducement and not safety so much. Yeah, but so let me ask you a question. All of you women, how many women? This 3. Suppose I give you a job you get a job in Delhi. Would you go? Why? Okay. Safety is not a concern. You can manage. What about you? Pollution. Safety, no. Have you heard of the general stories that you hear? I mean, I don't know, but you keep hearing of these horror stories in Delhi and so on. So we have to talk to Delhiites really, whether they have the same sense of insecurity, right? So if you're bringing safety into the picture, then you're falling into this bracket of, if you're talking about pollution, then you are still in this physiological state where you're looking at basic things. And what are those basic things that people want? Roti, kapda. What else? Let's make it interesting a little bit.
Makan.
Makan ho gaya. That roti, kapda, makan is over. What else?
Comfort zone of living.
What?
Comfort zone of living.
What is comfort? What is comfortable to me may not be for you. For example, every day morning before I come for work, I want to spray myself with Davidoff or Gucci or something. Do you do that? So comfort is very amorphous. It can be different for different people. Let's look at basic needs. Basic. You can't do without them. Come on, guys.
Roti, makan, kapda.
We finished all that, huh? If I don't give you food for enough of time, you will forget about the mobile phone. I can assure you.
Maybe safety.
Safety is the next stage.
Transport, medical.
You're disappointing me.
Health.
Yeah, these are givens, health and so on and so forth.
Income?
It's not a choice. It's not a choice.
Okay.
So Maslow,
Self-satisfaction.
interestingly talked about sex. He along with roti, kapda, but we don't talk about it so much because we feel shy. But I gather all of you are adults, right? But it's interesting. So he said that physiological needs consist of all these things, and unless they're achieved, you cannot go to the next level, that is safety and security. And unless you are safe and secure, you can't go to the level of social belongingness. And that's why we have what is social belongingness? People like to come together. They want to get into clubs. They want to participate and so on and so forth. So all of you also have a cycling club. It gives you a sense of status. I'm a member of the cycling club, or I'm a member of the smoking club, of which the vice president also comes, and so on, or a member of the drinking club, or whatever club it might be. So it's not only about the event, it is also about the sense of belonging. And human beings want to belong, because there are only very few people who say that I really don't want to belong to. You must be really mentally tough. So social belongingness is important. And then you have the esteem need, that is promotion, recognition. I want to be there. And eventually you come to the stage of self-actualization, where all these things don't matter anymore. I've been there, I've done that, I've achieved it, and now I really don't care anymore. And I am motivated by deeply intrinsic things. I care for something deeply. So you have people like this working in, there's this guy who comes here and lectures once in a way. He's a lake reformer. That is, he takes defunct lakes in Bengaluru city and works on them to make them self-actualized. He gave up a job in an IT company. He's not very rich. He doesn't make too much of money, but he's passionate. Yeah, he's not counting his next ESOP or, what is that? We said food voucher, huh? Gift voucher. That he gets and so on and so forth. I can see you also got several other people. If you look at the Azim Premjis, or you look at the Narayan Murthis and so on and so forth, I think they pretty much achieved, they're contented with what they have done and they have moved on. So this is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's a central theory. A lot of motivation theories rest on Maslow. Any questions here? So there was this guy. So, one of the first companies that had a greenfield project in China was Motorola. And I think the managing director of Motorola went, and then he was addressing they hired several Chinese at the sort of lower levels, and he was addressing them and said that, we will sponsor you. If you do well, we will sponsor you to higher education, this, that, and the other. We'll give you nice, maybe we'll send you to Harvard, and so on and so forth. And he said, any questions? So there was silence. Then he said, any questions again? And one old man put up his hand and said, will you give us a house to stay in? So classic Maslow. This guy was pitching at some esteem level. We'll send you to Harvard and all. This fellow was still at the. So you have to be a little careful what you pitch to people. So you can't get you can't pick up some people really off the road who are very poor and talk to them about high flying things about motivation and how, you should sort of do good for this country and so on. And it doesn't make sense. So my wife gets very upset when our maid servant takes leave without informing. And she said, what kind of thing is this? I said, look at her. I mean, where she comes from. She's got a husband who's a drunkard. That fellow more often than not brings no money home, but beats her every third day. Yeah, and you expect her to inform you when she doesn't come. So you're asking for too much. So Maslow's hierarchy of needs is classic, and you must remember it. Okay, so okay. So we then come to so Herzberg was a little bit of an advancement, and people were saying, just like you guys, about gift vouchers and this, that, and the other. So Herzberg said that, so people were said that there are two ways of looking at life. One is either you are satisfied or I am satisfied. I am satisfied with this table, or are you satisfied with the table? Or you're dissatisfied with the table. Herzberg again did a lot of research and said, this is not really, there is something gray in between which we are missing out. So Herzberg started asking this question that suppose I put you in an office and the table is great, the building is great, it's got a great view, the policies are great, you have paternity leave, you have more leave following maternity leave, which your wife takes, your secretary is very pretty, things are working well, but the job is useless. So he brought in some fundamental contextual issues. And then he started saying that things like they're called hygiene factors. So for example, if the carpet is clean and beautiful, I'm happy. But does this motivate me? So he said no. So he said that if the carpet is dirty and unclean and torn, it becomes a dissatisfier. Yeah, it becomes and you are unhappy about it. But if it is clean and very nice, it is not necessary that you're going to be motivated by it. So suppose you have a broken table, you are going to be dissatisfied, isn't it? You're going to be unhappy about it. But on the converse, suppose you have a beautiful table, it does not mean you're going to be motivated to work harder. So I hope you're getting the distinction. And Herzberg put money firmly in the place of hygiene factors. He said that if you don't get enough of money, you are going to be unhappy and dissatisfied. If you get a lot of money, does not mean you're going to be motivated to work harder. And it's a fascinating theory. So Herzberg talked about not satisfaction and dissatisfaction. He talked about motivators and hygiene factors. So for example, if you have great policies in your workplace, you are satisfied, you need not be motivated. Yeah. So what brings us motivation to work is something that you should sort of look at carefully and think about if these are not what motivates us. And then I talked about, of course, McClellan's theory of needs, which talks about the need for achievement, the need for power, and the need for affiliation. And of course, all of us have different drivers, but generally What do you think? Who are the most effective managers or leaders? Out of these three? Powerful, okay. Achiever, okay. So McLaren, in his own, it was an opinion. He said that those people who have a high need for achievement, a middling need for power, and a not so high need for affiliation generally are better managers. They seem to manage better. But those people who have high needs for power seem to sort of have problems in getting along with other people and leading teams and so on. So if you got high need for power, you better start working on it and trying to mitigate it a little bit. Yeah? Move on. Criticism part. Okay, and then people have, there's something called as the self-determination theory, is that people prefer to feel that they have control, like I told you, the control over their actions, focus on the beneficial effects of intrinsic motivation and harmful effects of extrinsic motivation, cognitive evaluation. What is the harmful effects of, what is extrinsic motivation? Your paisa, again, your gift voucher, all these are taking people to Pump House or Uru for a drink. All these are, how many of you have been to these places? Rather interesting, no? Yeah, generally I find I'm the oldest guy there, but nevertheless, it's good fun. Yeah. So focus on the beneficial effects of intrinsic motivation and the harmful effects of extrinsic motive. What are some of the harmful effects of extrinsic motivation? Harmful effects. Like if you keep, they're not satisfied. Very good. Okay, they're not satisfied. You'll be expecting more and more. Yeah, yeah. So if you keep throwing money at people, all that is going to happen is they might get satisfied temporarily for about a month or 2 months. They'll come back again. Give me more. Give me more. It's an endless dark pit which you will keep on feeding. Yeah, it can never be fulfilled unless they see something else. Yeah? And then you have something called as the cognitive evaluation theories. When people are paid for work, it feels like something they want to do and something they want to do and more like something they have to do. Yeah. So yeah. So for example, whoever is not on mute, please mute yourself. Amita Shenoy K. Yeah, you have. Okay, thank you.
I'm on mute, sir. By mistake, it got unmuted.
Yeah, you have a system which unmutes itself automatically.
No, because I think by mistake I pressed the keyboard. That's why.
So
Sorry.
you have to press something. Okay, okay. I thought maybe you have a timer which. Okay. So the cognitive evaluation theory is when people. So you all get paid, right? You get paid for your work. How does it feel? So you might call yourself anything. You might call yourself senior vice president. You might call yourself managing director, but eventually you're a coolie. Just like the porter in the railway station who carries your luggage. What is the difference between him and all of you? Yeah, pretty much the same, right? And that's why, two good friends, Narayan Murthy and CNR Rao of IISc, he called all people. He said, these are cyber coolies, which upset Narayan Murthy a great deal. And he was, they didn't talk for some time apparently. Yeah, but the fact is that is cognitive evaluation. As against, I do a job, but I don't get paid for it. I do a job because I love a job, or I don't get paid too much. I get paid little money, but I really like this job. So many times That's why I keep advising caution in throwing money, right? You must get people to really be involved with their jobs and like the jobs, and that is a greater. Is this making sense to you at all? Or do you think I'm talking something at some 50,000 feet, which doesn't really work? So as you keep rising in, or growing older or going through your career, you'll find that many of the things that I'm saying make sense. And today, uh, so yesterday I was talking to a former student of mine from many years ago who said that I've told my company that I will resign if they don't give me work from home. So I said, be careful, your company will respond in good time. Maybe now they are absorbing it, but they will. So don't reduce everything to a transaction. It eventually doesn't work. Okay. Can I think move through all this? So fundamentally, what these theories are saying is that take a holistic view between extrinsic motivation and intrinsic motivation. It is not only that you concentrate on intrinsic motivation, extrinsic motivation, that is, say, paying money or giving perks or taking people for a foreign jaunt and so on and so forth. But the job itself is lousy. Yeah? And it sort of doesn't work in the long. I know of a company which keeps taking people to Europe, but the job itself is very, very painful. So they might go to Europe, enjoy that short holiday, but then they have to come back to this lousy job. It doesn't really work well. Anybody disagrees with me? So I want to hear if you have some serious disagreement with what I'm saying. It's good to hear. Captain Nagaraj, all this is utter BS. I want more money. No? Okay. So again, you have things like self-concordance. These are words that you might like to look up. Considers how strongly people's reasons for pursuing goals are consistent with their interest and core. Very important. So I asked this question, little bordering on the political, but anyway, I will ask it. How many of you are vegetarian? Not bad. Okay, you have few. Suppose, madam, I gave you a job in a butcher shop and paid you 2 lakhs. You won't go. Anybody would go? You're vegetarian, but you will go and do. You're quite happy. So that is where, you have a conflict of. So I am very clear. I am vegetarian because I believe that I do not like to harm. I'm clear. I make no bones about it. If it hurts your sensibilities, so be it. Yeah. I am not going to go and work in a place where I have a strong belief that these are my value systems. So I also like to do jobs that I believe. So for example, I like to teach because I feel I'm doing a noble job. You might think otherwise. Yeah, you might think this fellow is giving a lot of gyan. Actually, he likes the money and he has a job. But I, for myself, in my own heart and mind, believe that I'm doing a noble job. So if you don't have that alignment of value systems and what you are doing, you are going to have problems. It's going to tear you apart eventually. So be careful. Yeah. Don't go and do, a lot of people do jobs just because they are paid well. So even as captain, this used to trouble me actually towards after I'd been in command for about 7-8 years as to what am I really doing? Okay, I'm earning a lot of money. I'm staying in this beautiful place called the Netherlands, Rotterdam. And then the food is great and so on and so forth. In fact, I had a moment of deja vu. I was actually playing cricket with my 11-year-old son in front of my house, and my neighbor came and said that your leave must be getting, I used to come on 2 months of leave every 2 months. So he said, your leave must be getting over and you must be going back now. So I was trying to explain to him why it was so exciting to go back. And I knew even as I was telling him that this was not making sense anymore to me. I was only, lying to him. The food is great on board ships. The work is glamorous. I earn a lot of money. I'm in the Netherlands. It's exciting. I command large ships. All right. But it was not making sense to me. So there was a discordant note as against a concordant. Then I decided, all my friends thought I was mad in giving up a job like that and sort of coming to Bengaluru. And my first job I took after this whole IT business happened for 1 year. First job I took in academia at 24,000 rupees. Yeah, I was actually earning at that point of time about 20x of that when I was in the Netherlands. Yeah. But then, but I think it's been a great journey since then. So while I would not recommend it to you, you might like to think about it. What is concordance and what is? Unfortunately, a lot of people make themselves miserable by getting into jobs that make no sense to their core value systems. If you have no values, then that is fine. Yeah, you can pretty much do. Are there people who have no values? Can you think of anybody? One good example is Adolf Hitler. Have you heard of Hitler? Anybody has not heard of Hitler? Adolf Hitler. So Adolf Hitler was an interesting guy. He had some quirky goals and he managed to kill 6.5 million people, right? So I think that he did that. He could do that because he had no value systems. Nothing bothered him too much. There was another guy, much worse, called Pol Pot, who came. Have you heard of Pol Pot? This you may not have heard. Pol Pot was, a Marxist leader. He was a communist guy. He ruled a country called Cambodia. Cambodia is a very pretty country. It's got the largest temple in the world. In fact, one of the few structures that you can notice from the moon, apparently. Yeah, the Khmer Empire, the Angkor Wat. Yeah, I went and saw it in 1998. I think fascinating place. So Pol Pot decided that this country should be an agricultural country, which is fine. You decide, you have some crazy ideas, like that fellow Gotabaya Rajapaksa of Sri Lanka decides that you should only have organic food in Sri Lanka and has reduced it to an economic crisis now. Yeah, so you have mad fellows. But Pol Pot went a step further. He said, if we want to make this an agricultural country, how do we do this? So somebody said, eliminate all teachers. So he lined up all teachers and had them shot. And he then said that after all the teachers and any kind of intellectual was killed, he then said that anybody who wears glasses must have read something. So shoot them also. So by the time Pol Pot finished with his country, he had killed about 1 million people. No, he had killed about 10 million people. I'm sorry. Yeah. So just think of these people. What kind of value systems do they carry? And in sort of achieving their goal. There's another guy who's called Mao Zedong. Have you heard of him? The Chinese Premier Mao. So Mao apparently once went to the Soviet Union and there was a guy called Nikita Khrushchev. So they had a meeting and then Mao asked Khrushchev, these two countries, America and England, are powerful. What makes them so powerful? And I think Khrushchev is a fairly intelligent guy, but in an off moment, he said, they produce the most steel in the world. China today produces the most steel in the world. But anyway, in the 1950s, they didn't. So Mao absorbed that, comes back to China and says that he had some jokers around him. He asked them, how do we get become the biggest steel producing country in the world. So they said every family must produce 10 tons of steel, iron. So he passed a diktat that every family on the pain of punishment must produce 10 tons. Suppose I tell you tomorrow, bring me 10 tons of steel. Can you do it? Iron. So he asked somebody, is this a good idea? And when you surround yourself, we look at that in group dynamics. When you surround yourself with people who are as crazy as you are actually in serious trouble. And that is why they talk about diversity. You have diverse people so that you get different points of view. So anyway, long and short of it is that he passed a diktat and he kept asking his chamchas, how is it going? They all said, brilliant, sir. You're a genius. Your idea is great. China is going to become the next superpower. And it resulted in the biggest famine known to mankind because people melted their implements. All shovels, axes, everything were melted to produce that. They estimate that about 30 to 35 million people died of starvation in China because you had a crazy guy who came up with a crazy idea and nobody was willing to tell him that he was crazy and that he had to stop this nonsense. So it actually, OB makes a lot of sense. Even organizations like that, you have some mad CEO or somebody who thinks he's the most intelligent guy on the surface of the earth, and there is nobody to question that guy and tell him that what you are doing is stupid and idiotic, and you need to look at. That's why diversity is talked about so much, because you have. So tomorrow, say, I don't know how that missile went into Pakistan, but tomorrow, if Narendra Modi decides, I want to launch a nuclear missile, a BrahMos at Islamabad, is it possible? You can't do it. He can't do it. He has to consult his cabinet. Yeah, and unless the cabinet says yes, the chief of army is not going to take his orders. So you need a group of sensible people. You need diversity. You need people who can think of the consequences of action and then come up. Yeah. So self-concordance is very important. Is there an alignment between your goals and what work you are doing? Yeah. So what does all this mean? For individuals, choose your job for reasons other than extrinsic rewards. Just what it in simple terms mean, don't look at the office or the money you're getting and so on and so, or the designation. Look at the kind of work that you are doing. For organization, provide a combination of extrinsic and intrinsic rewards. Yeah, so that people have both. Then, of course, we come to the goal setting theory, Locke's goal setting theory. So Locke said that this guy's name is Locke, L-O-C-K-E. And he said that you can sort of get people motivated if you have a goal. Yeah. So why are you motivated to come to the class? You want your degree. So that's one of the motivation. I'm sure you want to learn as well, and you come, right? But eventually, it's like that rat who kept pressing the. Why? What's the goal? So Locke said something very simplistic. He said that if you have a goal in front of you. So how many people have you told that you're doing executive MBA? Go, yeah. You should go and tell everybody, so that when you want to leave, then you will think, what will my friends say? So Locke said that when you have a goal, make it public, so that there is a deterrent in you from. How many people have you told? Nobody. Put it on your Facebook. Yeah? So that you are motivated to hang in there and get that goal. That I can see. So goals tell an employee what needs to be done and how much effort is needed. Specific goals increase specific goals you must have. I want to finish my executive MBA program by 16 months or 17 months or whatever. Yeah, not, I just want to finish. So you must have, I think all of you know what are SMART goals, right? You know what are SMART goals? Specific, measurable, actionable, relevant, and there must be a time. You can't say, I will finish my executive MBA where after 10 years, 15 years, say within 17 months, I will finish it. So Locke said that you must have a goal and you must pursue a, what's the problem with the goal setting theory? All of you have goals, right? Or you don't have goals in your workplace? You have goal, chief? No, no, that guy who just now came. You have goals, okay. What's the problem with goals? So they're good because they keep you focused. What is not so good about them? Like what? Work-life balance. What is the problem with goals?
What if we don't achieve? Then that's a bigger problem.
Look for another job. So one of the problems with goal, if you notice carefully with the goal setting theory, is that most of these goals are set by other people for you. Yeah. And in a sense, it sort of takes away your sense of independence. And of course, there are stressors. Please understand that human beings cannot survive without stress. It is about how much and how long. And if you take stress, if you played cricket, the first few balls that you play are stressful. Yeah, you're and if you ask even the greatest players, they say they don't stride out as if they're going to hit a century or something. They're very careful initially. It's about stress. So stress is useful to a small extent, but if it sort of starts becoming very, very, it goes on for a long time and great intensity, there is a problem. So the goal setting theory is wonderful. The only intrinsic problem is that it sort of, many times goals are set for you by your bosses and so on. And it's not a democratic process. It's not discussed. So they tried to correct it. And there's a guy called Peter Drucker. Have you heard of Drucker? Drucker is the guru of management. So he's like one of those ancient rishis. He looks ahead and talks about management after 100 years. Yeah? And he came up with what is called as the management by objectives, where he tried to correct some of the ills of, show you a slide on that, some of the ills of the Locke's goal setting theory. So the other factors influencing goal performance are things like goal commitment, task characteristics, national culture. Goal commitment is how strong is this goal? Is this your commitment? How strong is your interest in achieving the? So, you are in the 11th batch, I think. When I was doing the second one, there was this young girl who couldn't speak any English, who came and said, sir, I want to join this program. So I said, no, I don't like to take money from you if you're not going to finish it. So he said, I'll finish. So I said, but this is tough. This is going to be difficult because you don't know much of English. She attended every class and finished on time with fairly good results, I must say. Level of commitment is very, very important in achieving a goal. It actually, I think, is more important than your intrinsic strengths or weaknesses that you might have. Some people have so many strengths. Yeah. So this is a serious challenge, actually. Many people coming into programs like this who have not so great English speaking skills. English is a language. It is not a competence. Yeah. Some of us know it better than other people. And so on and so forth. But that should not become the focal point. So this girl is a good example where her goal commitment was so strong that she finished on time. Another girl, first batch, I sent her company a letter of appreciation, in fact, because she attended every class. And apparently she joined that organization as a secretary or something. And now she has made her way up into the middle management as a manager. Yeah. So again, I can see that commitment. Yeah. So goal commitment, task characteristics. What are task characteristics? Task characteristic. What does it mean? Suppose I say your goal is to pass the executive MBA program in 17 months. Are you up to it? Yes or no? Suppose I say that next year you have to climb Mount Everest. Does this change anything? You can climb Mount Everest next year. So there is a problem, right? So the task characteristics are important. How complex is the job and whether you feel that it is within your reach or not is important in how you pursue. So sometimes you should tell your bosses when they give you goals that are so difficult that people stop trying eventually. It doesn't make any sense anymore. So the task characteristics are so wonky that people do not even attempt it. And national culture. So for example, there are some societies where failure is not an option. What about India? If we fail, is it okay? We're an old civilization. We have succeeded, we have failed, we have hit the bottom, we have come up. Several things have happened. But if you go to America, failing is not a option. Failing is not an option. You have to get it. You have to win. Being number two is not good enough. And so it gives rise to other kinds of problems. But nevertheless, but they succeed in getting their goal done. Okay. Right. So this is Peter Drucker's management by objectives. And how it is done is that here the manager discusses goals with the subordinate. Yeah. So you have, first of all, your organizational objectives. And then they it's a cascading tree. You have divisional objectives. You have department here, your manager comes in, his manager, and maybe the top hierarchy of your company. And eventually you have individual. All these are discussed as you go up, and it's a more democratic process. And somehow, so how many organizations have it like this? Does this what happened in your organization? Or somebody says, this is the goal, go and get it done. Today you have to sell 50 nuts and bolts. Huh? Or like this. What about you, Chief? Similar one? Okay. So management by objectives is very popular nowadays, simply because I think it sounds nicer. Everybody is, you still have failure, you have people who can't finish and so on and so forth. And things like that happen. But nevertheless, and also there is an alignment between the goals, the organizational, vision, mission, and so on and so forth. What's the difference between vision and mission, by the way? Tell me in some simple language that I understand. What is the difference between a vision and vision? Anybody can improve upon. It's not bad. short, long. Okay. So vision is fundamentally where you want to be. Mission is why do you exist? Yeah. And value systems are what drives you and how you want to be perceived by other. What are your value propositions? Your company, your jeweler. What are your values? Go and look it up, please, on the website. Okay. Anybody else? What are your values? Values are very important. Why? So, very correct. Based on those values, the company would run. So, for example, there is this company called Johnson and Johnson, J&J. They make this baby powder and all that stuff. Are you aware of this company? Yeah. So they manufacture, a medicine that is not available in India. It's called Tylenol. Yeah, I just to when I went to America first, just to sort of look at that bottle, I bought one. Very difficult to open that bottle. It is a painkiller for headaches and all that stuff. People take it. It's an excellent medicine. It's a blockbuster. It has about 70 to 75% market share. Right from the time J&J introduced it to the United States. So their value system is that the most important person for Johnson and Johnson is who? Who do you think? Who do you think is the most important person for Johnson and Johnson? Their market. Okay, no. Who? Huh? To be born babies. No. So Johnson and Johnson has written it in their credo. They say the most important people to us are the doctors who prescribe our medicine, not the patient. Yeah? The doctors who prescribe. And what happened was several years back, this Tylenol, which is the #1 drug of J&J and contributes greatly to their top line. Somebody in the US inserted tablets of cyanide. You know cyanide, right? So the long and short of it was that innocent people bought, it was prescribed by a doctor. People bought, about say 10 families took cyanide, took the bottles, ate pop medicines, and about 10-15 people died almost immediately. This became a huge problem. So Johnson and Johnson, in fact, recalled, before you have cars now being recalled, Johnson and Johnson recalled every bottle and paid off people for giving back the bottle. And then they closed production of Tylenol for about 6 months. They then reintroduced a tamper-free bottle. And they said that, that's why it is so difficult to open now. They said that if you find a tampered bottle, don't take it. And then they came back into the market. They've lost several years back, they lost a couple of $1 billion. But they didn't budge. They said our doctors will lose trust in us. And so we must, and you're right. So how do you want to run your company is guided by your vision, mission, and your value. So go and look up the story. Very interesting. Yeah. What's the time? Right. So goal setting and ethics. So again, you can ethics. You understand what is ethics? Do you understand what it is? So suppose your boss tells you that you have to go and sell 50 nuts and bolts today, and I don't care how you do it. How does it work? I mean, are you suppose? No, let me make it simpler for you. Suppose to sell your 50 nuts and bolts, you have to go and bribe somebody. Would you do it? Why? A lot of people will do it, right? What's the big deal? Hmm? Yeah, so ethics, while we all like to talk about ethics and how ethical we are, please understand that ethics is generally based on context. If I make it more and more difficult for you, at some point in time, you will tip over. To a large extent, you're ethical. Till things are. So, for example, would you eat a human being? Huh? So, in the story I told you about Mao Tse-tung, Tung, several people have eaten other people. When there is no food and you're starving to death, and you can see your family and children starving to death, you will eat anything, I can assure you. So, you just have to change the context. So, who is supposed to take care of the context? Your company. That is why they are there. They should not create a context which makes people unethical. Yeah. So that is the important part of it. So you don't set goals that are so difficult that drives people to be unethical. That's the general point that this was trying to sort of convey. So then you have something called as a self-efficacy theory, which is very interesting, and it's called the Bandura's self-efficacy theory. So Albert Bandura was another great social scientist, and he said that, you know, what motivates people, and there's this great swimmer called Michael Phelps. Have you heard about him? Huh? So Michael Phelps is this. What does he do? Phelps. Yes. Yeah. So Michael Phelps tells a very interesting story. He says that when he started preparing for the Olympics, his coach would blacken his goggles, so he couldn't see most of the time. Yeah, and he had to swim by feel and touch, number of strokes, when is he reaching the end of the pool, so that he can touch, swivel back and come back. And he was very angry because this was very difficult, but then he sort of slowly mastered it, that he did not have to see for him to swim. And what happened apparently in the Olympics is that he had a faulty set of goggles and water got in, so he couldn't see properly. But because he had practiced long enough, and because he had mastered that, he still went on to win the Olympic gold. I think it was a 200 meters freestyle. Yeah. So Albert Bandura goes on to say that you must have what is called as an active mastery. You must have mastered your job. How do you master your job? How? That is okay. Okay, good. So they say practice makes. The harder you work, the better you get at it. Yeah. So these are simple homilies, but you know, when they put together, they make a lot of sense for us. So an active mastery, that is, you practice more and more and more and more, and eventually you will sort of nail the wonderful thing. And then there's called as vicarious modeling. So vicarious modeling is, can you model yourself? Have you heard of this term called role model? What does it mean? Your mother must have told you, you know, all bad boys, don't go with them. Yeah, that's what she meant. That select role models who have, not those fellows who smoked cigarettes at 8 years and 9 years and did various other things, right? So select role models that, can you learn anything by looking at other people or no? How does it work for you? So you may or may not be aware that I am a really good table tennis player, and I have make no bones about it. you can take your chances if you want to play with me. Yeah. Even now, I can give somebody 30 years younger or even 40 years younger a run for their money. So, and I used to play a lot of table tennis on board. And when I got married, my wife, of course, was not a, she did various other things, but she didn't play table tennis. For definitely. So I would be reluctant. She would say, "Can I come and sit with you?" And so she sailed with me for several years. So, can I sit there and watch? And I'm getting bored. So I would say, "No, why do you want to come?" So anyway, she being who she is, had her wishes to come and sit there. One day she said, "I'll play." So I said, "You have never played table tennis in your life. How can you play?" So she said, "I'll try." And actually, she played pretty well. So I said, "You must be lying. You must have played somewhere in your school or college." She said, "No, I have never played." And then I realized that just by watching other people, you can actually pick up something. You can build muscle memory. It's fascinating. So Bandura says that is vicarious. So what is the secret here in vicarious modeling? Watch the right people. What do we do most of the time? We are attracted to those fellows who don't work. Yeah, who are taking long breaks. Yeah, they are the fascinating guys in schools and all that. Who are you at the most kind of fellows who are academically poor and don't do anything properly? They are the hero of the class. That nerdy fellow who sits in the first bench and does well is not was teacher ka chamcha and all that this. Yeah. So generally, vicarious modeling is very important, and you must be able to sort of have a role model, a mentor in your terms now, and then follow the guy. Verbal persuasion is, how many of you get up in the morning and say that this is going to be a good day and I'm going to do a really good job? So try it. So, my father used to read a lot of stuff, and he told me that when I was really worried because when I was going for my master, that is, I was to become captain, my master's exam in navigation and ocean engineering. He said every day morning you get up and say that you have passed. And every day night before you sleep, you visualize how you are. The examiner is telling you that you have passed. So I had nothing to lose. Yeah. And I said, okay, if this is going to help me pass this wonderful exam, let me try it. And actually it worked. So psychologically, you are kind of psyching yourself up every day that you are good enough and you are confident. And that's why you see when people get into a huddle and so on and so forth. And what are they doing? They're psyching all the Indian cricket team before they go out into the field. They're all in a huddle. So today it's more and more common where they are psyching themselves up to sort of play better and work as a team. And then finally, arousal. That is, are you in that stress of eustress? So one is the distress part of it. That's the bad part of stress. But are you stressed just enough so that you are agitated enough? But then it depends on what you want to do. Suppose you are writing code. You don't want to be very highly. But suppose you're playing a game of kabaddi. Should you be in a state of arousal? Yeah, you need to be excited. And suppose you're going to suppose you're a fast bowler. You want to be psyched up to sort of go and knock somebody's head off. But suppose you're going to play chess. Should you be in a state of arousal? No, obviously not. So that you should use your common sense a little bit and do it. I want to play a video actually. So just give me a minute. So guys online, trying to play a video and then we'll take a break. Yeah.
Okay, sir.
Okay, sir.
take that short break and I'll come back. Yeah. So what's the time now? Now it's 11. We will reassemble at 11. 15. Yeah.
Okay, sir.
Okay, sir.
Okay, mute. Okay, guys, we're back. Can you hear me? People online?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to, yeah, thanks. I got it. Yeah. So I just wanted to show you an example of what is arousal. And this is the famous All Blacks, the New Zealand rugby team. And they're very famous. They have won the World Cup a couple of times. So what happens at the beginning of a rugby game, which you know is a pretty violent sport?
And now the All Blacks just waiting for the French to peel off the tracksuits, stand in front of them and receive the challenge of the haka. The challenge has been received by the French. Stand by, the Rugby World Cup final.
Just put that PPT back. So obviously the French are not very impressed by that, but that's a good example of, you know, what is arousal and how teams psych themselves up. Okay. So we're talking about the arousal part here. Thanks, Abhias. So this is also known as the social cognitive theory and social learning theory. So you can look at, So the self-efficacy, reinforcement, and expectancy. So what is the expectancy theory of motivation? I told you that, what do people expect? So several years ago, I had gone to this place called Pattaya. Have you gone to Pattaya, anybody? Horrible place, yeah? So, but anyway, me and my wife were walking along on the beach, and then we saw this lady who looked very familiar. So I told my wife that this lady looks familiar. Maybe we've seen her. So my wife was kind of dismissive and said, no, we haven't met her. Anyway, she was the bank manager of my ICICI bank here at the Elephant Rock Road. So we got talking and she said something she looked very sad. So I said, what are you doing here alone in Pattaya? So she said, I've been selected as the best ICICI manager in South India. And they've given me this prize for a holiday, free holiday in Pattaya. And she went on to say, if I get another thing like this, I will resign. So the point is that people want what they want, what they expect. And if you let some fellow sitting in some extraneous place decide that this is what I want to give you when you don't want it, you have problems. So the expectancy theory talks about people are motivated when they get what they want to get. So he might like to get a gift voucher, but we give him a training course to the AI program, which really may not make much sense or interest. Yeah. So the expectancy. So when you bring all these together, you have the manager sets difficult, specific goals. So goals must also be stretch goals. They must interest you, but they must not be so difficult that they can't be sort of achieved. So manager sets difficult, specific goals for job or task. Individual has confidence that given the levels of performance that they will be attained, that is self-efficacy, Bandura's theory, which now saw. Individual has higher levels of job or task performance, so he raises the bar, and we'll come to that in the next slide. Individual sets higher personal self-set goals for him or his own performance. So these things come together between the individual, the organization, the manager, your own way of looking at it, and so on and so forth, which brings us to a very interesting sort of model, which brings several theories together. And there is something called as the Pygmalion Effect or the self-fulfilling prophecy. I'm sure, considering the reading habits of several of you, you would not have heard of the Pygmalion Effect. Have you? Have you heard of anything called as the Pygmalion? Yeah. So the Pygmalion is, of course, a Greek character, but a very famous play written by a guy called George Bernard Shaw. G.B. Shaw was an Irishman, and he was a great character, Nobel Prize winner, and several times married. So he's a very humorous guy. And he once is said to have told his wife that, you know, your children and my children are fighting with our children. So he was much married. He had several children that he lost count after some time. And he wrote brilliantly. So the Pygmalion was one such book, which I, of course, read at school. The interesting part of the Pygmalion is this. So there is a very arrogant English professor in England. He has a friend who's a doctor. The friend has just come back from India. And this is set in colonial times, the pre-1947. And they're walking through the streets of London. And the professor says that, you know, I'm so good at my job that I can actually pick anybody off the road. And I will train them. And in 6 months' time, they will be able to speak such perfect English. Yeah. So this is again going back to the story of two guys called Santa Singh and Banta Singh. So they go to England and they come back. There's a bit of a joke. And when they come back, somebody asks them, what did you find interesting about England? And they say, everybody spoke English. So yeah, so it's along those lines. So, but while everybody speaks English, not everybody can speak good English. Yeah. So it's in that context. So this professor tells his friend, the major, that I can pick anybody off the street. I will teach them for 6 months and they will be able to speak the Queen's English. So they get into a wager for a set of number of pounds, 100 pounds, 1,000 pounds. And they pick a girl. She's a flower seller. She's selling flowers in London. So they ask her, she says, okay, I will take part in this experiment. So the professor takes this girl and coaches her for 6 months. And then they take her to a party where the British Queen is there and there are several other nobility. And she passes with flying colors. And so he says, see, I am so good. There's only one problem. Whenever he speaks to this girl, she reverts to that roadside English. So he's very puzzled actually. He says, you speak such perfect English now. I've done such a great job on you. Why is it that you speak this roadside English? when you speak to me. And she tells him something very interesting. She says that everybody else treats me like a noble person. You treat me like a flower seller. And so my instinct is to speak to you like that. So that is what is called as a self-prophesying effect, or the Pygmalion effect. Also goes to many houses where they keep telling their children that you are stupid. Yeah, I can assure you, if you keep telling your children long enough that you're stupid, they will turn out to be stupid. It's called the Pygmalion effect. It's also for managers who keep telling their people you are useless. You can be rest assured that they will turn out to be useless. So eventually, to cut a long story short, in the Pygmalion, the professor falls in love with this girl. He proposes to marry her, and she tells him to go and take a hike. Yeah, so that's how the story is. It's a fascinating novel. If you have the time and the inclination, please do get yourself a copy. George Bernard Shaw wrote this, and it's a very, set in about 70, 80 years back. Very interesting story. Self-fulfilling prophecy. Yeah, believing in something that can make it. So if you also keep praising people, if you keep telling them that I know you can do this, they will probably rise to the occasion and do it. Yeah. And then, of course, you have the reinforcement theory. That is B.F. Skinner. I talked about him, his experiment with rats and pigeons and so on and so forth. Very experimental. He took rats, he kept them and did many things. Yeah, okay. I think we can stop here. Yeah, you can read all these things about. I'll quickly touch upon this: distributive justice, procedural justice, and interactional justice. So suppose you kind of were due for a promotion and you didn't get it. How do you feel? Demotivated and so on. Suppose you were called for an interview process, for a promotion, and the interview only didn't happen and you were said that you didn't get selected. How would you feel now? Devastated, I think. Yeah. So that is how justice is. And many organizations, so for example, if you go for about 5 years back, major public sector had put out an advertisement for a consultant. And since I was bored and had nothing better to do, I went. I applied. And when I went, and this was a senior position. So when I went, there were about 300 people sitting in a huge hall. So I said, I have 300 people come for a consultant. No, they were typists, stenographers, chaprasis, general managers, all sitting in one. And we were called at 8:45, and finally we were called in at about noon with no tea or anything like that. No, not even water. By now, many of us were cheesed off. And when I went in, their CEO was sitting, and beside him, 2 other fellows were sitting. So this was like a rapid fire. Tuck, 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 a lot of questions were being asked. And I found that these 2 guys sitting on his right and left kept staring at me. So after a while, I stopped this interview and I said, excuse me, I need a small timeout. But who are these 2 gentlemen who seem to be staring at me in an unblinking fashion? So he said that, no, you need not know that. I told him, then this interview need not continue. So thank you very much for your time. And it's been a pleasure making your acquaintance. And I used some high-flying English and left. But the point is, what is my impression of that company? Good or bad? So companies ought to realize, if they if they do have funny processes of interviewing people and interacting with them, they have something called as a procedural. People don't care eventually if they get selected or not. But this is going to have an impact if the processes are poor. It can be very, very demotivating. Or you can have distributive justice, that is perceived fairness of outcome. The processes are good and I got what most of us are aware of what we deserve. And so you get what is called as distributive justice or interactional justice, that is sensitivity to the quality of interpersonal treatment. Again, if you go somewhere, you're not selected, it's fine. But then after which nobody informs you of anything. Yeah, they promise you TADA when you go, but after you are rejected, they say no TADA, take the bus and go home. Some colleges do that, they call you for an interview. And if you don't get selected, they say take the bus and go home. Bus is available opposite. How do people feel? Yeah. So these can be serious issues, and it's called organizational justice. You have to take care of them. Yeah. Treat people well. And so that if they don't get selected, also they don't complain too much. So somebody was telling me that in Google, when they get interns, I was surprised because one intern had put up the goodies he got when he left his internship, finished his internship and left Google, the number of goodies he got from the company. He got a bag, some chocolates, one electronic gadget, and so many things. So I said, why are they giving him so many things? They said, we want them to feel good when they go, so that they speak well about our. It makes perfect sense. Yeah, so people interacting with you for a short time, make them feel well so that they are motivated. Yeah. So good. Any questions? Okay, so we've been talking about the theoretical concepts of motivation. Let's go to the application part of it. So one is the theory. We talked about Maslow, we talked about Locke, we talked about McClellan, we talked about Herzberg, we talked about Albert Bandura and various other people. So if you have to apply them, which is more interesting to you actually, the application of motivation theories, what should you look at? And how do you bring some of these things to play and make an effort? So now that you have heard of various theories, can anybody give me an insight? How do you apply some of these theories? Give them food voucher. No, I think we have moved on beyond that, right? So not gift voucher, I'm sorry. Yeah. So so how do you apply this? So you made the class more interesting. So no, it's fine. You're interacting. So what do you do? That's a basic thing. So that is, you try to understand what motivates somebody. What else could you do? What else can you do? Yeah, if they really have not done good work and you appreciate, suppose you have not done some lousy work and somebody appreciates you, how would you feel? Everybody is a joke, it's a big joke. So you have to be careful. You screwed up the biggest project and somebody said, good job, sabash. It's like this IPL. That fellow has dropped a catch. The bowler wants to murder him, but somebody runs up and pats him on the back, and then the big smile. Tell me something you would do as a manager. You guys seriously need to get that upper story, the machinery working. Crank it up a little bit. Get it to start thinking. It's got rusted because you have not used it for a long time. No, I don't want to hear Maslow. I want you to bring several things into play at the same time. Like that model I showed you, bring them all into play at the same time. Fair enough. The work is highly motivating. Like what? Which kind of work? Where do you think that kind of work exists? So tell me something basic. If you are a manager and you want, what is the first thing that you would do? Okay, very good. What else? Ways of motivation. And whether you can bring in several motivating factors into a particular, will you do it or will you let HR do it? You should do it. Please understand. Any of you HRs here? HR people. Please understand the role of an HR is to facilitate a process. The role of an HR is not to start muscling into your territory. Suppose you're a marketing guy. Those marketing salespeople report to you or to HR? To you. So you better get interested in what motivates them. Otherwise, you will be filling a form as to explaining why you have such high rates of attrition. Yeah. And attrition beyond a certain point is a problem, isn't it? So, like she said, what's your name? Swati. You're the one who's been calling me. Okay. Huh. So Swati, so like Swati said, can you bring several of these things together in terms of offering motivators for a particular job? Yeah, it's your business to do that. Right. So one of the primary, this model is critical. Please look at it carefully and note it down. I'll give you a few minutes. Come sit here. You let them worry about themselves. They appoint you as their leader. Yeah, you can do what he's doing. So log in and take a screenshot. Okay. Can sort of log out, huh, Chief? Have? Okay. So the job characteristic model is fundamental to many of you. How important is the job for a particular set of people? So for example, what are the core dimensions of a job? Is it, and there are things like skill variety, task identity, task significance, autonomy, and feedback. So for example, what is skill variety? Skill variety is how many skills do you bring into place in a job? So anybody, what kind of skills do you bring in to a particular job? What job do you do, Chief? Software. What skills do you bring into play? Okay. 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 So you bring in a fair set of skills. Can anybody tell me any more skills that you bring into play? He said coding skills, interpersonal skills, communication skills, time management skills. Anybody brings in any other skill? You bring in analytical and reporting skills. Okay, very good. Okay, decisional making and problem solving skills. Very good. Okay. What are professional skills? What are unprofessional skills? So if you say there are professional skills, there should be unprofessional skills. I'd like to hear what are those first. What else? What else skills can you bring into play? Coordination. Okay, what else? Leadership skills. Very good. Okay. Ability to work in a team. Okay, what else? An ability to see a job through, persistence in a particular following. So these are different skills or slash competencies that somebody might bring into a particular job. So what's your name? So Sudeep brought in, first of all, he talked about a functional skill, that is coding, and then went off into several other, which is fine. So you can actually bring several functional and other kinds of skill to a workplace. So what the job characteristic model says is that the more the number of skills that you're allowed to bring in to play in a particular job, you are more enthused in doing that job and motivated in a sense. So that is the first point. Any doubts on this or questions? So I don't know how many of you noticed that first slide I showed you on Charlie Chaplin in the first class. The problem with that job is that there are no skills to be brought in. You're just tightening bolts on a assembly line, and therein lies a bit of a problem. So skill variety is very important. How many skills can you bring in? And then you have task identity. That is, what is the importance of that particular, or so again, task identity and task significance. So for example, if you are in a hospital, or say if you're in a university, would you like to be a professor or would you like to be the head of security? Why? Head of security is kind of glamorous, right? Why would you like to be a professor? You get to know students. What else? What else? I want that right answer. If you're a professor, you will learn. Okay, fair enough. What else? Yeah, you're in alignment. So the purpose of a university is to disseminate knowledge. And if you are disseminating knowledge, there is a sense of identity. So similarly, in a hospital, would you like to be the chief marketing officer or would you like to be a surgeon? So for the same reason. So task identity is important. Can you identify with a particular task? Yeah? And thirdly, the task significance. What is the impact you are having as a so I'm the dean. I really don't have to come to a classroom and teach. Yeah, nobody is going to really question me. But the reason why I come to a class and teach is because I feel that I'm going to have impact, right? So where do you think I had greater impact, as a professor or as the captain of a ship? Where do you think the impact was greater? No, I'm asking about myself. Selfish fellow. What do you think? Yeah, so even I think so. So the impact, the task significance is very, very important. And if these three things come together, that is the skill variety, the task significance, and the task identity, half your job is done. So instead of taking people to Uru and Pump House for a Friday evening drink, you might like to work on their job. Jobs are so boring, uninteresting, not colorful at all. And you're trying to bring in extraneous factors by giving them gift vouchers and taking them for a drink and a picnic and things like that, while the job is boring. Yeah, does this make sense to you? No? Yes or no? Does it make sense? Huh? No. This theory, does it make sense to you that you need to look at the job? Yeah. So it should, because this is a well researched and talked about theory where people are chasing the wrong things. Then of course you have to add two other very important things called autonomy. So people need, what is autonomy? So are you married, my friend? So suppose your parents call you and say, marry this girl. How would you feel? Not so happy. Yeah. You want to have a, intrinsically human beings like to be free. We like our independence and freedom. And so when people keep telling you all the time what to do, you sort of have a little bit of you wrestle with it. I mean, a sense of not being so. Anybody here who really likes their parents to tell them, or you would like to choose yourself? How is it? I mean, it's your personal choice. No, I need some response from you fellows. I want to know what's happening in this generation. Personal choice. What would you, madam? Anybody who is fine. I mean, if you tell your parents that I'm sort of, please go and look out for somebody for me to marry. Yeah. But then my understanding is that in this time and age, a lot of people want to exercise their own personal choice. So you want what is called autonomy. Autonomy to do things, autonomy to make mistakes, autonomy to correct yourself, and autonomy to move on. So autonomy is very important, or the freedom, and eventually feedback. Are they getting enough of? So let me ask you a question, and I want an honest answer. Is this an interesting class? You don't have to tell me, I know. Yeah, I know. I can see the body language. I can see how you respond or don't respond. That is why this job is so lovely, because I get instant feedback. Yeah, I don't have to wait 6 months like you fellows. I know at this moment whether I have, what is the reaction of my class, and I have total autonomy. I can run this class anyway the way I want. Tomorrow I can take all of you to Banerghatta National Park and have a class there if I feel like. my boss is really not going to question. Yeah. So that is why this job is so exciting, because I can bring in various skills, including a little bit of drama. Drama, sense of humor. Of course, I must know the subject. I must know organization theory. Otherwise, it's going to be a problem. But there's so many other things come into play. So the skill variety is massive. The task identity and the task significance are great because, as all of you know, being a professor is a good or a bad thing. It's a noble profession, right? Everybody says so. They don't pay you too much, but nevertheless, it's a wonderful job because several of these things come together. So next time you have to look at a job, just don't look at extraneous factors or extrinsic motivation. Look at what motivates people internally, and these are several of the factors. Yeah. Okay, so some of the ways in which you can actually, how do you increase skill variety? How do you get people to learn new skills on a particular job? One way of doing it is by job rotation. You rotate people in job. So, for example, our friend here, Sudeep, who does coding as a profession. Now, suppose we want to make Sudeep's job more interesting. Is it an interesting job, Sudeep? Suppose we want to make it even more interesting. What can we do? Case study for all of you. Shift him to another. So make him put him into the sales department for a while. Sudeep, can you go and do sales and we'll let you learn something new. Take a break from coding for, would you like that or no? So, what is the problem here? I mean, it sounds exciting. Suppose somebody tells me, Captain Nagaraj, so I am all the time volunteering. For in the last university, I was head of HR. I volunteered for the job. I said, I teach HR, but you know, what's the big deal? I want to practice it also. And so they said, what do you know? I said, I was HR head for a IT company for a while. And so I was made head of HR. So I like to keep sort of wandering around through different areas. As you know, I've been captain, then I became professor, then I've been in HR. I started my own company for a while. So there's spice in doing new things. So job rotation. What's the problem with job rotation? One is it doesn't. So for example, suppose you are in an aeroplane and you're flying at 50,000 feet. And suddenly the pilot announces, the captain of the plane announces that now, because of our policy of job rotation, I am going to get the flight steward to fly the plane. How does that sound to you? You might be a little alarmed, right? So you can't use job rotation as a strategy in several jobs, particularly if there is a risk involved. By sending off Sudeep from coding to selling something may not entail too much of risk, but otherwise you could have a little bit of a problem. But otherwise, job rotation is a fantastic thing. And if somebody offers that you rotate jobs and go and do something else, you should sort of actually take it up. Yeah. So it's also referred to as cross training, periodic shifting from one task to another, reduces boredom, increases motivation, and helps employees better understand their work contribution. Why does it help you to understand your work contribution? You can see the total picture. So, for example, yes, ask me. I can give you a better answer than him, maybe, if it is about the class. No, I cannot give, or no, it's not required. So, you know, several years back, there was this, you may or may not be aware that the Indian Army is sitting in Siachen. Are you aware of that? Siachen is a very inhospitable and hostile place. Yeah, it is sub-zero and very difficult. And so the other then defense minister was a gentleman called George Fernandez, who died some time back. So the Indian Army had asked for some special snow boots because it is biting cold to be imported from Austria. And a few IAS officers sitting in Delhi had shot it down, saying that they are too expensive. So how would you have dealt with this situation? So the army has soldiers there, it's biting cold, difficult conditions, they ask for something, it's been shot down. What would you do? Correct. So that's what he did. Actually, he put for 2 weeks, he put all those IAS officers at Siachen. I said, you experience the conditions and you come back and then reconsider whether you want to give these approval or not. And what do you think happened after that? All of them approved very quickly. Yeah. So I actually had because I once sailed from a place called Dubai. We were doing a ship repair project, and in a dry dock. Dry dock is there is a deep tank-like thing dug into the earth. The ship comes in, then they pump out all the water. So a huge ship is sitting there, and then you work on it. So we worked on it for a month or so. Really hot conditions, 50 degrees, 52 degrees, 53 degrees. And for the first time, I felt what it was to be dehydrated. Yeah. And it was very difficult. And we sort of overran. I think the repair was for 25 days. We find it took 40 days. And I was captain. So then we had to sail. And we had to sail to a place called Sakhalin. Sakhalin is next to Siberia. Minus 40 degrees centigrade. Yeah. So plus 52 minus. And minus 40 is if you touch something without gloves, your skin will peel off. If you touch metal, it is that bad. The tip of your nose can fall off actually. You will not even realize. Yeah, if it is so cold. So why am I telling you this story? To know the total picture. Yeah. So I think it's very important for us to understand how. And no, the reason being is that I got again there was a time overrun there in Sakhalin. What we did again, there was a time overrun. There was a time overrun in Dubai. So my bosses were not happy, and I said, you should look at the conditions, man. You know, you should look at the conditions in which we are working before you say. So you should get the total picture. So when people job rotate, they get the total. So I had this is a little bit of an HR, but I'll digress. You know, when I was just before leaving my shipping job, one of our ships was in the port of Calcutta. Calcutta, you're all aware. Yeah. Mostly they're saying Hobena and things like that, you know, Cholbena, Hobena. So one day morning, I woke up and I sort of came out of my cabin and I saw a lot of red flags on the ship where the port was on strike and the ship had been taken over by a communist union. And unfortunately, my crew, all the lower deck fellows, had joined this strike and it was a total mess. So I wrote to my office and I sent a fax message to my office and said, what do you want me to do? So the HR director replied saying that, Captain, what is the situation on board? So I just not told you what's the situation, that everybody has joined the strike and we are in not a very good shape. So he said, okay. You've given me a situation report. I said, yes. So he said, close the galley. Galley is the place where food is cooked for everybody on a ship. It's called the galley. So he said, close the galley for the crew. That is, don't cook any food for the crew. So I said, why? He said, because they're on strike. So because they're on strike, don't feed them. And I told him, Chief, you don't know really what you're talking about. Seriously, is this what you're suggesting? So he said, yes, I am giving you an order that you should close the. So now it is a little tricky situation, right? This fellow is a senior guy. He's sitting there and he's passing some order. So I told him, so how do you think I should react now? In my place, what would you do? Of course, you don't know the background and what power a captain has got. But nevertheless, what would you do? Follow. Okay. What else? Should I click a bridge? Very good. Excellent. Negotiate. Okay. What else? So first of all, I told him that you are in no position to give me an order. So I am the captain of the ship and I am on a ship. These people are on a ship. You are sitting in an air-conditioned office several hundred miles away. So you be happy there. You can only give me a suggestion. So number one. Number two, as per the Shipping Act under the constitution of this country, it is my duty as captain to take care of my crew. So I cannot shut down the galley. Thirdly, my suggestion to you is to call the CISF, the Central Industrial Security Force, and get these fellows off the ship and then do whatever you want to do. But till they're on the ship, they are my responsibility. And so anyway, when later on an inquiry was held, everybody appreciated my position and told me, good, you did not obey blindly. Yeah. So the job here is to understand what you need to do and not blindly obey, like all those chelas and chamchas of Mao Zedong, yeah, who managed to kill 30 million people. Right. So job rotation is a good strategy for you. Yeah, we have some time. Okay. And then you have something called as job enrichment. Job enrichment is where you increase the scope of a job. So for example, suppose you go to a hotel and there is one lady who is doing the housekeeping. Can you put her in the reception for some time? Why not? Yeah, maybe she can learn how to interact with customers and so on and so forth. So that is what is called as her main job is housekeeping, but now she has a sense of doing something more or more difficult. You're right, right? At a higher responsibility level. So it's called job enrichment, which works very well. And relational job design is very important. Relational job design, any example? Where your full team meets the customer, happens in Rolls-Royce. Why are Rolls-Royce so expensive? Customized cars. So that entire team finally goes and presents the vehicle to the customer. Yeah. Or even yesterday I was at Pump House because one of my friends is relocating from Bengaluru, and we had dinner together. The manager comes and meets every customer. He doesn't meet actually, he just says hi, hello, how is everything, and so on. But anyway, it's a good gesture. So you can have people who know so many times. So for example, Chief, when you're writing code, do you know whom you're writing code for and where is this code going to be used when several people are working together? It's a good thing. Otherwise, if people are writing bits and pieces, so for example, is it better to be a carpenter who manufactures the full table or to manufacture one leg of the table? So it gives you a sense of fullness, a sense of understanding completely. And then if the customer can then come back and say, this is a great table. Yeah. So that's why in places where you write, I like the service of this particular girl, boy, / whatever they did for you. Yeah, it sort of works because now they have a sense of reaching out to the customer. So you can have a relationship based job design and they see the full scope of the work. You can have several other things like what is job sharing? I think job sharing is going to become more and more popular. So say I'm going to be the dean for 6 months and then I leave and then somebody else becomes So the company, the university is spending the same amount of money, but I am getting 6 months of holiday. Does it, anybody of you have jobs like that? You can job share. You can say both of us will do this job. He will come for 6 months. I will come for 6 months. And I think in the future, that's the future. I think companies are going to accept it because it gives you a great deal of
Work-life balance.
flexibility. So
Yeah.
say I'm earning 20 lakhs a year. I'm good with 10 lakhs a year. I want 6 months of rest. Other guy will come and take another. So this is pretty popular in the shipping industry, in the airline industry, and so on and so forth. It has not come to you fellows yet, but I'm sure as we go forward, as salaries rise, maybe, yeah, you might say that I don't want to work for so long. I will work less and I will take a less compensation. Yeah. Telecommuting, all of you know, telecommuting is all of you working from home and so on and so forth. Is it good, telecommuting? No. It's good for me, but it's not good for other people. Yeah. So, other people may not really like work properly, but I work properly. Right. So telecommuting again is being looked at. But many of you work from home right now. Where do you work? Oh, wonderful. Okay. Work from home is there. How long? Even great companies like Google and Microsoft have started calling people back and saying, come in small patches. So I think all of, huh? I thought it gone up. Where do you work? Okay. So, but I was given to understand that people working from home work longer hours and so on. Is that right? But anyway, telecommuting was seen as a novelty earlier, but today it has become pretty commonplace. But I think eventually we're going to have a hybrid model. Maybe you will work 3 days from the office, 2 days from home, and so on and so forth. Yeah. We don't have that option. I have been coming to office right through the pandemic, except when there was a forced shutdown. Yeah? So positively related to objective performance and job satisfaction, reduced work-family conflict. I think work-family conflict has gone up, right? Because of people staying at home. Huh? Gone, huh? But you spend more time with your. That's okay, but you are all the time with your dog and other family members. Won't get time to. You can't take a nap in the afternoon. Huh? Reduce carbon emission, importantly. Yeah. You don't have to see, suppose all of you people were at home and I was taking an online class. I don't have to run the AC here. Correct. So reduced, and then you don't have to bring your vehicles and so on and so forth. So you're in a way aiding the planet. So yeah, several things like that, participative management, all this. You can read all this yourself. Any questions? So you've got a good idea about motivation. So next week onwards, I am shifting to section B, and section A will be Professor Sanjay. Yeah, so he'll be taking it forward. I will be taking the next 3 sessions for them. But your assignments are joint. Yeah, so I will be correcting your assignment 1. He will be correcting their assignment 1, and which is again common. The same articles are there. And the group assignment, that is the second one, is a common assignment again for both of you. So both of us will be there in judging scores. So do you have any questions? Anybody online? Any questions? Hello?
No, sir.
Brilliant. Okay. No, you can do part by part. Why you want to do part by part? You get tired after 5 minutes. Hmm. Yeah, you don't have to tell me. You can want to do 3 videos also, I have no problem. Yeah, you want to do 5 videos of 2 minutes each also, I have no problem. Feel free. We are not sadistic people. We just want quality work. That's all. Yeah, go ahead. But make sure that your articles are uploaded on the LMS and I get the video. No, I asked you to send it to me by email, right? Why? So far, people have been doing it. What 500 people have already done it. Do whatever you have to do. No, if 500 people can do it, you can also do it. Please find out how to do it. Don't ask me these silly questions. And if you make me run around and I can't get access and all, I will reduce marks. Please figure it out. Like I told you, if 500 people before you could do it, I'm sure you can do it. You're an IT fellow. Huh? You work in IT company. What do you do? Wow. Okay, very good. So like a helicopter only, figure out how this happens and send it to me. Yeah. And don't make me run around, please. And also I'm telling you in the exams and all that, don't attempt section C, question 2, then go to section B, question 4, then section A, question 1. Yeah. Nicely answer section A, B, and C so that it becomes easy to grade papers. Otherwise, there are some characters who take, I don't know, like a musical chair, multiple questions keep floating around. And then sometimes the question is not even numbered. So we don't know which question this is they're trying to answer. All answers have the same answer. All questions. Any other further questions? Where is the drive? Some drive is floating around. You said some drive in the middle. Oh, that's okay. Can you open it? I can. So sometimes it asks for access. Then I have to write to you. I cannot get access. Then you will write to me of what? Then I will say, no, your assignment 1. Then again, then you will say, okay, access granted. I don't really have the time to do all this stuff. Yeah. Okay, guys, see you around. And thanks for attending my class, guys online.
Sir, if I'm audible, I just want to ask one question on the assignment side. For assignment 1, it's not specific only for OT. We observe the timers are there in LMS against each and every assignment. Like for AFM, it was at 3rd April, 12 a.m. So whenever we are talking in the class, we are more focused on the date, not about the timing for that particular day. I mean, 3rd April, 12 a.m. is very sharp.
Focus on the day. Focus on the day.
Okay, few hours can be adjusted, right? Like
yes,
I was submitted my assignment 3 a.m. in the midnight. So just because of that. And for OT, it's 7th April, it shows as a due date. 7th April, some hours are there. But outside of that, it shows 6th April.
So one way of, what's your name?
I'm Virendra Sharma, sir.
Yeah, Sharma ji, one way of doing this is you don't have to wait for the last day.
Yes, I'll definitely, I'll prefer to do that. So it was a first assignment and
no problem. Just tell your professor that you have cleared it with me.
Okay.
Yeah, drop him. This is your accounting course, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So drop him a mail, and then I will take care of it.
Sure, sir. Okay. We'll go by the due date only. I mean,
Yeah.
few hours as we clear.
Try to submit one day earlier so that all these kind of issues are.
Right. I'll surely do that, sir. Thanks.
Okay. Good. No problem. Give it a good shot. Your assignments are important. More important than your